So here, of course, here's one about the next financial crisis. You said a couple months ago that we're in the 7th inning of that, getting to the next crisis. And this person says, you mentioned that it's coming in 1 to 3 years. How would you advise everyone to prepare for it?
Well, the first thing I'd say is, in the markets, there's a saying, he who lives by the crystal ball is bound to eat ground glass. So I want to say the forecast, I'm never precise.
But you got it right once. I mean.
But the cycles happen over and over again, and so you're on the tightening stage. And we are 9 years into an expansion, and we are having the tightness of monetary, all the classic cycles. Most probably, you'll see cracks start in the markets first, and then you would see that then pass to there. Now, I would be surprised if it was more than 3 years down the line, and it could be 1 or 2 years. And so, what would I say? I'd say, by and large, most importantly, is know how to balance your portfolio or your exposures. The cycle is that everybody wants everything to go up. Central banks want it to go up, want not only the markets to go up, but they want economies to go up, they want people to go up, of course. So as a result of doing that, they produce a lot of credit because credit is buying power. And so we have a world now that's leveraged long. In other words, a lot of liquidity around right now, a lot of assets. Okay, and then and so there's the current environment, and I would say that what you want to have is a diversification of your exposures. If you're holding a portfolio, think about the assets that do well during such times. To diversify your portfolio, and if you're here thinking about raising money, I would say I would raise money, if you're an entrepreneur and so on, earlier rather than later.
Get it while you can.
Get it while you can.
And what stage, therefore, are we in today? We had a segment on it around 6:30 with Brian Sullivan, who talked about actually how debt in this country has actually increased since 2008.
Yeah, debt is increased, but debt relative to the debt service payments relative to incomes have not risen like they've had in 2007 and 8. So,
his point was looking at corporate debt in particular.
Corporate debt, of course, is levered. But if you look at the corporate cash and you look at the maturity of the debt, when we run the pro forma financial calculations, it's nothing like 2007, what looked like to 2008. There's a squeeze that'll be emerging. But generally speaking, we're in, I would say, the 7th inning of this cycle. I think that we're at the stage in the cycle where interest rates are being raised. Right. We're in the later stage, probably maybe we have 2 more years, I would say, into the cycle, something like that. And then the issues of this debt crisis are very different than the last debt crisis. Right. Each one's a little bit unique. This one looks very much more like the 1935 to 40 period.
You mean debt situation? You called it a crisis. We're not at a crisis yet, are we? Are we there now?
No, but
you mean the debt situation?
Can I describe the parallels?
Yeah.
Because I think the parallels are really important to understand. Okay. 1929 to 32 and 2008 to 2009, we have a debt crisis and interest rates hit 0. Both of those cases, interest rates hit 0, only 2 times the century. There's only one thing to do next, and that is to print money and buy financial assets. So in both of those cases, that's what the central bank did, and they pushed asset prices up. As a result, we had an expansion, we had the markets rising, and we particularly had an increase in the wealth gap. Because if you owned financial assets, you got richer. And if you didn't, you didn't. And so what today we have is a wealth gap that's the largest since that period. The top 1/10 of 1% of the population's net worth is equal to the bottom 90% combined. You have to go back to 1935 to 40. As a result, we have populism. Okay, populism is the disenchanted. Capitalism not working for the majority of people. So we have that particular gap. So we have a political gap, a social gap in terms of the economics, and we're coming into the phase where we're beginning the tightening cycle. 1937, we begin a tightening cycle. We begin a tightening cycle at this point. No tightening cycle ever works out perfectly. That's why we have recessions. You can't get it perfectly. So as we're going into this particular cycle, we have to start to think, well, what will the next downturn be like? We're 9 years into this. As you have a downturn, I believe that there's a political and social implications to that related to populism and less effective monetary policy. There's less effective monetary policy because so far there are two types of monetary policy used. Lowering interest rates. We can't lower interest rates. And the second is quantitative easing, and it's maximized its effect. So I think that the next downturn is going to be a different type of downturn. I think pension problems, healthcare problems in terms of obligations that are not funded, that are not debt.
More severe next time?
I think it'll be more severe in terms of the social, political problems, and I think it'll be more difficult to handle. It won't be like the same in terms of the big bang debt crisis. It'll be a slower growing, more constricting sort of debt crisis that I think will have bigger social implications and bigger international implications.